Fans?
Fans and just generally, I suppose everybody that you meet here, it's just a totally different mentality. It certainly really changes your attitude towards sort of other people being here even for a week. It makes you start sort of wanting to give things to people. It's terrible. I mean, it's not terrible, but I mean, you just don't get, the organisation in Japan and everything. They're just far more intelligent than anywhere else.
You don't think so?
Oh, definitely. Just the way that you get to gigs, the way that they organise things. You're getting off at a station where there's like hundreds of fans, where they get you off. Everything. They're just very clever. Far more clever than anywhere we've been, and we've been everywhere nearly.
What about the crowd reaction? Is that different from like what you've been used to?
Well, obviously, in America, that was best for us.
Oh, really?
As regards to crowds, we're more. I think I'll leave this. In America, there's something that's more acceptable about us in America. I think, sound-wise. I don't know about visually. I don't think they really care about the visuals. I think they're really, really interested in the vocals and the. They like Helen in America. It's their backup singer. She's the big girl that sings with us live. She gets a lot of appreciation in America, and I think because we've added since we've been touring, we've added Helen to the lineup. She's not in the band, but she's working with us, and we've also had 2 brass players and a keyboard player, and they seem to really appreciate everything in America. I mean, the reaction in America was absolutely fantastic, but we went there with the impression that it wouldn't be. So if you go somewhere with a preconception, you get there and it's totally different. Whereas when I came to Japan, I was quite disappointed at first when I arrived here, because it was very American, very westernized, and like in America you expect it. Here you don't. You expect a lot more culture. But actually, after being here for a week, you realise that there is far more than you actually see when you first arrive.
What did you find to be different from your first impression?
Well, it's very westernised. I mean, Japan is like New York and LA rubbed together, But as you get down on the streets, and you drive around, you suddenly realise, and also meeting the people, you suddenly realise that it's a completely different mentality, I mean, America is... When I went to America, I hated it the first time. The second time, I absolutely loved it. I mean, I loved LA, and I absolutely, I couldn't wait to go back, So I think it's just... when you sort of get into the mechanics of where you go to, wherever you go, America, Japan, once you get into it, you start to understand it for what it is, and I think that's when you enjoy it. But, the American audiences really listen to us, and also, I mean, they all sort of they start off very light, and then they end up very, very rowdy, and sort of, you play clubs, we played a lot of agoras. It's very strange. In America, we played one night to 700 people, the next night 7,000 in LA. So it was like New Hartford. We played to 600. And every night it was a different place, different mentalities, different kind of people. Some rock and roll audiences, and they all enjoyed us. I mean, you see a few people in the audience looking at me and going, but as soon as you're into the set, that's it. They just they get into it. I mean, lots of people that we really didn't expect come to our gigs, stand up at our gigs, sort of Stevie Winwood, those sort of people, Rod Stewart, all those, and they all enjoyed it, I think, because we are musicians. I mean, despite what the actually image portrays, we are actually musicians, and we're good musicians. I think that we are basically a very good rock and roll band. We have the rock and roll setup, which is another thing which makes us very acceptable in America. A lot of the English bands have been there with synths and no drums, and I don't think they can get into that at all. They like the drummer, the guitars, they like that sort of setup there. I think that's something they're really into.
Which came first in America? Was it the sound or the visuals?
Definitely the sound. I mean, the album cover, they begged me for months to take my face off it.
Oh, really?
To change it, yeah. And you see, the thing is, I thought about this a great deal before I went to America, and my idea was that if I went, every band, like the Human League went to America, and they had a hit with Don't You Want Me. Then they cut their hair off and took off their makeup and went normal. Adam Ant went to America, wiped his makeup off, he had one hit, and that was it. And I think that, you see, a lot of those people, if you do something, I believe if you do something, then you're committed to it, you do it, right, if you do it. And basically, because I do what I do for enjoyment as well as for business, I refused point blank to change that for anywhere, even if it meant not having a big hit in America. And I knew, I mean, you got Liberace, I mean, and let's face it, he's probably the most eccentric person in the world, apart from Danny LaRue. And I just think that in America, it's mainly it's a lot to do with personality. It's a lot to do with how you present yourself, what you tell people, and what they see. If they just see a gook, that has nothing to say, I think that's it. We did a lot of TV. We worked very hard, and my policy is that if you want something, you'll get it. If you want to win people over, and I think basically people are the same world over. They want the same things. They have the basic same desires. I think they enjoy the same things. I think the problem that's been in America is that records have been like coming from England. They're 6 months out of date. I think now with MTV is the key to this whole like British invasion in America. But I think that with us it's different. I mean we're not only in Billboard, we're in adult contemporary now, very high.
The black charts,
black charts, and we're getting a lot of cross-section airplay. And for me, that's an achievement. I don't really want to be part of the British New Wave. I'm not. I refuse to do any sort of. We were asked to do shows with the British bands. I refused to because you see, what we've done. I think we've done through hard work on our own backs. I don't really want to be part of this British invasion. I think that, it's not good enough for me, or for the rest of the band. As musicians, you have to have bigger goals than that. All right, so that's great, patting each other on the back, but I'm not interested in that. Full stop. I'm interested in being a big band in America or in the world. Not just in America, but generally.
Detect a lot of black influences in your music. Were you brought up on that kind of stuff?
No, not really. I think that I think what it is really is that most of the very traditional type. I mean, we're very traditional. The setup's traditional, and the sound is basically very traditional. It's not something that you have to sit back and think, wow, I mean, that's why we got played on American radio, because we're not sort of, this is a bit difficult to understand. So we play with traditions, but we do it in our own way. And basically what happened when we started this band is I didn't have a clue about songwriting. I didn't, we wrote some songs that were bad, and they were bad. And when I hear them now, we laugh, they were very funny, very primitive. So, with the original, we had another guitarist who was awful, and we had another drummer. I met Mikey, and Mikey was the first person in this band, the bass player.
What changed the sound then? I mean, what polished it?
Just really John and Roy, and also, you see, I think what happened was I had a lot of people down who, you get drummers down. When you audition people, a lot of musicians are very stuck in their ways, so they come down and their attitude is like, you know nothing, I've been doing this for 8 years, I'm just going to churn out what I want to churn out, and basically, that's a very musician's attitude, it's very muso. When John came along, he really had been playing in bands for a long time and he was bored stiff. So he realised the potential of having someone like me. He just looked at me and said, I can do what I want. I said, yeah, that's right, do what you fucking want, get on with it. We need to do, basically I wanted this band to be a unit, a democratic unit, where everybody in the band had to put their ideas in to be able to get anything out of it. Because you can't have one person taking all the money, taking all the everything, So as regards to songwriting, I mean, Roy is the most musical member in this band, and I think that he achieves the most musically. He plays keyboards and guitar, so that's a great advantage. But everybody contributes. The basic melody comes from me, the words. Basic, very basic melody, and the rest is like picked up from everyone else, and it's it's inevitably changed around, messed about with, But basically, we all work for the same thing. There's nobody in this band that really has a particular idea about a song. So instead of saying, look, I want it to be like this, fuck the rest of you. We do it very, we don't really know what we want. So at the end of the song, we're all working for the same thing, and I think that's to our advantage. But sorry.
No.
You want me to just tell you, because I did go off the subject about this influence thing.
Well, the reason I asked is because the new single, Church of the Poisoned Mind, sounds very Motown.
Well, rhythm and blues, I think, more, more rhythm and bluesy, because of the harmonica and everything. But basically, the thing is as well, we've had a hit with Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, and it's so easy for us to churn out another 5 or 6 of those. I mean, Time isn't like Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, it's quite different, it's not reggae. And all the singles that we've released have been different. White Boy, I'm Afraid of Me, all of them. I think that's the pattern that I want to work in, and we all want to work in. The next album, obviously, song-wise, is a lot better, I think, because they're songs. They're not ideas. I mean, none of us have any musical experience, so we've achieved a great deal, I think, being non-musicians.
When did it start, though? When did you realize that you could sing and when you could make music?
Well, when I first sung, when we first did our first demo, it was pretty diabolical, you know. I mean, I sung about this flat all the way through. But the thing is, I think a lot of white singers have this whole sort of great white hope complex, and they try to sort of be Bowie, Brian Ferry. You know, you notice most of them have got this basic sort of strained, affected vocal sound. And I suppose I did that to begin with. I sounded very like white, sort of very, you know, deep. And I think that, you know, one day it just clicked. That's not what I had to do, you know. I realised, you know, we played a few gigs and I thought, you know, my voice started to open up, obviously, because if you're not a trained singer, then, you know, you don't know your capabilities. And just suddenly it went... I think really the peak of my singing came on Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, you know. It just went click. Just one day we spent a long time in the studio, and then it just went, you know, perfect. I just had a good day, and that was it really. And that basically influenced my singing from then on, you know, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, because that was done totally live.
What accounted for that? Why did you just do so well on that day?
I think because I'd really started to understand what we were doing, you know, and what we wanted. I think we'd all come to the point where we agreed that we could do what we wanted. You know, it was irrelevant, you know, what we did, so long as we did it well and enjoyed it. And I think that's what happened really, you know, with us. I mean, obviously we've had success faster than most bands. I mean, most bands take about 10 years. Yeah. You know? But I think it is knowing what you want, you know, and going for that, you know, knowing what you want exactly, and not sort of thinking and changing your mind every week, you know. I mean, sorry.
Oh no, if the bio is correct, there used to be sort of when you were a teeny bopper, you used to hang out in a lot of clubs and be sort of a notorious character. When was this? Were you already? Did you have your musician?
No. The only musical experience I had was Bow Wow Wow, which is previous to Culture Club.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was 3 months stint I had with them. Complete fluke. I mean, they were looking for a guy originally. They had Annabella. She was the last straw, and she just wouldn't sort of do what Malcolm said. So I joined. I was asked to join, and it wasn't very successful. I mean, I don't know if you've ever met those guys, but they're very sort of masculine, we are men, confused types, you know. I mean, they're far more confused than I'll ever be. I mean, I know exactly what I am and what I want, you know. I'm quite honest about myself. I think those sort of people are, you know, I think they're so, because of Malcolm, he's so fashion orientated, they're so worried about what they are, you know, that they can't really give any feeling to anything, you know. I mean, they're great musicians. They have really had something great. I think they just blew it because of indecision, really. You know, I was with them and Malcolm kept cancelling tours. You know, everything was a complete fuck up. So it was like frustration from the word go. You know, and I mean, they were all taking a lot of substances and getting very depressed all the time, and I just couldn't take that.
How did you get hooked up with Malcolm McLaren?
Through Matthew, the guitarist in Bow Wow. He asked me if I'd join. Behind Malcolm's back.
But how did you get hooked up with the guitarist if you weren't a musician yourself?
No, this is where my previous lifestyle comes into focus, because I'd been a model for about 3 years with an agency called Peter Benison, and the girl who was my agent was Matthew's girlfriend. So she got me a lot of, you know, I knew her, I just met her through, I mean, before, you know, this guy over here, Herbie, just took millions and millions of pictures of me before Culture Club, you know, for years.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, he knows me. It's just a coincidence that I've actually bumped into him again. But you know, it's a very small world, really, I suppose. And you know, I mean, wherever you go in the world, there are always sort of fashionable clubs. Even in America, but it's different in America. It's basically based on money in America. It's not based on what you can achieve by dressing up. It's based on what you can earn and how many cars you got, how many credit cards. I mean, it's a different scene, you know. I'm not talking about the young people. I'm talking about the trendies, you know, like the. And in London, it's a far more gutsy, sort of gutter type thing, you know, it's street, you know. And I think a lot of people in London can actually be very successful on nothing, you know. And so I'd done that for a long time. I'd been going to clubs, dressing. I mean, I'm quite sober to what I used to look like, you know. So.
What did you used to look like?
Oh, I can't really explain it. I mean, it's visual, you know. So it's. But I used to dress up a hell of a lot more, do more crazier things, you know. And I enjoyed it.
You were simply a model then. What type of model? I mean, what sort of pictures were you doing?
Makeup, face, you know. I did also work for the Royal Shakespeare Company for 3 months, which is I did makeup women, you know, I did girls, their faces. So because I mean, I started wearing makeup when I was about 15, 16, you know, like very little, sort of, you know, the sort of Mark Bolan type
What started you on that? Was it Mark Bolan
Yeah,
and Bowie and all?
yeah, no, not Bowie. No, and I think Bowie's really hammy. I mean, I've always liked Mark Bolan far more.
Oh, really?
I always thought Mark Bolan was more poetic. I thought he had more social conscience than conscience than David Bowie. I always felt that Bowie was a bit too surreal. I mean, I loved Bowie when I was younger, but I was a real Mark Bolan freak. I mean, that was sort of T-Rex. Yeah, I had everything. I mean, I used to sit in my bedroom with a sort of tennis racket, pretending to be Mark. Don't pretend you haven't done it.
So this was back when you were in high school, then?
Yeah, this is when at my secondary school, which I left I left at 15. I mean, I left through my own choice, and because I think I reached the stage where I just didn't want to learn anymore. I didn't want to have a 9-to-5 job, and I was very against the idea of just going into the job for the sake of it. So I just left, and then I got various jobs in boutiques, very fashionable. I just went around talking, trying to find work, and I got it. And I didn't really want to go into the dole, which is the English social security system.
Was this always in London?
This was in London. Then, actually, I did move out of London for a year, which was when I was about 17, till my 18th birthday. I lived in the north of England, Birmingham, and I opened a shop up there. I mean, basically, I had quite a few second-hand clothes shops, I mean, basically, I was the sort of person that talked a lot, as you probably noticed, and and sort of basically got money. I mean, I didn't want to have a proper job, but I wanted money. Obviously, you can't live without it, especially when you're sort of living away from your parents. You find out how difficult it is. You don't have anyone to cook, clean your clothes, pay your rent, electricity, and it all comes real to life. TV, so it all became very complicated. So I had to have work. So that's basically what I did. I just went round. I actually spent about 3 years doing it, going to jumble sales, buying stiletto heels, because they became very fashionable. So I actually was quite clever then. I mean, I made quite a bit of money, enough to live on. I mean, not fortunes. Collecting old 50s dresses, coats, anything that looked like it could be sort of refurbished, and sold it, And, I had quite a few lucky breaks, really.
Well, you're a very resourceful person. It seems like no matter what you start up, you kind of succeed at it.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I think this has been the most successful thing I've done. But I think that is because it's a unit, and I think that basically I work far better in a unit of people. I couldn't, even when I've done, and also before this band, I had a shop which was very successful in London called The Foundry, which is where, I don't know if you've seen all the Star of David stuff that we wore. Well, that was before this band. I started designing that with a girl who's actually just come back from New York. She's held a great big fashion show over there, so she's doing very well. She's gone off to do her own thing. But I did that with her, just some student girl, and I started to do that, and the band started to happen then. And so they started wearing the stuff because it was like cheap, free. It's from my shop, and that's basically how that all started. I mean, you see, when people say your image, I mean, I've been doing this for such a long time that I do get bored answering. But I don't mind talking about anything, I'm not bothered. But I do get bored with it because I actually did do it for pleasure, and now it's like a commitment. You know what I mean? It's like a commitment, and although I still enjoy it, I originally did it because I wanted to, and not because I was forced to. So people do that. I think people do find it easier to understand if I say, look, I'm a pop star and this is my gimmick. I mean, it is, to a certain extent. I wouldn't sit here and lie to you. But on the other hand, I do enjoy it. So there is a personal touch to it, and I do think that if somebody takes as much care as I do, and it is very rare for somebody to go to the extremes I do, I think that there has to be more in it. In fact, I know there is more in it. So basically that's what I'm saying. That I do take a lot of care over the way I look. Whether you like it or not is sort of neither here nor there. But as I said, I'm telling you about this club thing. I mean, I did that, and then, I became very well known in London. London's a small town. News travels fast. It's not like America. Everywhere's like a different country. Yeah, right. But in London, England, in fact, is very small. There's certain clubs, and people know about you. So when we started to play, people knew me. Like, oh yeah, let's go and see this creep, see what he's, see if he can do anything. And I think a lot of people were surprised, God, this guy can sing, fucking hell. Just thought he was like a total idiot, So that, in a way, I always wanted to be a singer, but it's something, there's kids that want to be air pilots, they never get around to doing it. I think that you just have to have determination. You have to say, look, I got to the stage where I thought, fuck, everyone knows me, but I'm fucking useless. What can I do? I'm totally useless. I've got nothing, and my parents kept saying to me, "You're useless, you don't do nothing, just dress up." So I just just felt that I had to do something. And then the shop happened, which was great. I'm very pleased about that. I was very pleased about that. And then the band, and I think this is sort of this is as far as I've got, you know. The rest is to come.
Was it during your bowling years there that you wanted to become a vocalist, or that you knew you had?
I mean, before that, you know, I mean, my father always was very confident. He used to say to me, "You're a good singer," you know. And I totally wasn't interested in it at all. He said, "You're a really good singer, you know, you can be a singer." And I used to say, "Oh, shut up." I mean, he just wanted me to do anything, basically, you know.
Just get out of the house.
I wouldn't play football, I wouldn't do what he wanted, I wouldn't beat people up. So what was going on, you know, what are you doing? So, you know, I mean, I was really good at art at school, but I'm not an arty type, you know. I like doing it. I enjoyed everything at school until it became competitive, you know, like sport. I did all that, you know, but as soon as it became competitive, I didn't want to do it. You know, like, you've got to run faster than this person. So it takes away the whole sort of spirit of it. So really, I didn't do anything. You know, I had a lot of encouragement from my parents, actually. You know,
is that right?
Very lot, and especially my father, because my mother was the sort of, God, look at the state of him, and my father was a sort of, shut up, you know, I've been working all day, woman, be quiet, you know, leave me alone, I'm not interested in what he dresses like, you know. I mean, my mother just, she didn't like certain things I did, you know, but she wasn't, not like usual. I mean, most parents, I think, really love their children, whether they, you know, got no legs or, you know, whatever. I think if you have children, you have to love them. That's your duty.
Were you living at home the whole time?
Till I was 16.
So already you were into your makeup stage?
Oh yeah, I mean, the punk thing as well had happened in London, you know, so, I mean, the thing is about a lot of these fashion things is they're always there, you know, it's just that, you know, you never notice them. I mean, you get people like Malcolm McLaren who comes along and capitalises on it. I mean, it was something that was happening, because if it wasn't, people don't create things like that. I mean, Malcolm got a lot of the ideas for punk rock from New York, you know, from there. There was a guy called Richard Hell, who Malcolm went and just stole all the, you know, he saw this guy with the pins in his t-shirt and just ripped the whole thing off.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, I mean, he'll tell you that. He tells everyone that. It's just that it's not something that's really publicised. I think there are very clever. I mean, Bowie's like that. I think he's one of these people that maroons around and takes great ideas. And yeah, I mean, what he's doing now is very contemporary, but it's also very successful. So you can't really knock it. But I think that, you know, if Chic released Let's Dance, people would piss themselves laughing. You know, I think people would say, you know, what's the idea? What are the words? But only Bowie could get away with singing words like, you know, put on your red shoes and dance the blues. You know, I mean, what does that mean? Can you see any significance in that?
No, you got a point there, yeah.
No, I think that, you know, it's a very contemporary song. It's a good song. And also the beginning's like Twist and Shout.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, take it, baby. Right. You know, and Bowie is a very good, he's a plagiarist in the same way as we are. I mean, we are. But I think that he's a little bit more pervasive about doing it, you know. I think that Culture Club is probably quite an honest example of plagiarism, modern music, you know. I think that's what we are, you know, we are very good at that as well.
So, are you still an aggressive music listener then?
God, I'm still very much on the same level as a lot of their fans, you know. I mean, I still try to, you know, I still am, you know. I mean, I collect things. I mean, I collect everything. I mean, I have a whole, I've got the real small flat that I've rented. I've lived in it for about 3 years, and I've basically got every single thing I've been given, you know, every toy, everything. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, obviously someday I'll give them away, you know, to a children's hospital or something, but at the moment I'm just still really consuming everything. I think also it's because we're working at a very fast rate. So, you know, I am very much like a fan. I mean, I still listen to the radio. I still want to know what goes on, you know. I'm more interested in the mechanics of this band than I am actually in what we achieve or how successful I can feel and how many limos I can fit into, you know. I mean, I'm not a pop star. I'm a person. I don't want to be I'm not interested in that side of rock and roll. None of us are, you know. And I think that is what kills a lot of people. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I can agree with that. Is that what keeps you in London? That sort of like.
Well, no, because it goes on there too. I mean, it's very much, you know, the star scene is alive and kicking wherever you go. You know, there are certain people that are very sort of full of themselves, and I think that it's as apparent. I mean, in New York, it's very much when you're a star, and everyone else is like above you, underneath your feet, which is a very bad thing. And I think that it happens in London, not to such a large scale because it's not as big, and there aren't as many. I mean, it's more movie stars in America, but the pop stars are quite obnoxious. You know, I mean, I think in America people were pleasantly surprised that I talked, you know. Most of the interviews I did, people said, look, please, you know, I'm not aggressive. I said, look, you know, this is my job, you know. I need you, you need me. don't think I'm going to start being rude to you. And I think that there's that honesty is now back. I think this is where a lot of new bands are succeeding. They're not only doing their jobs, but they're also being very clever. All that shit like punk rock, telling people to fuck off and up yours it was all rubbish. Because basically people don't like it, and this is a big world. It's not just 6 people with punk haircuts in the street. There's millions of people out there, I mean, last night there was an old woman with a kimono on, about 80 at her gig. You know what I mean? Sitting there, with a fan. I mean, they had a heart attack. But I mean, I think that, all these things are like experience, and I think you have to expand. You can't just sort of stick in your little shell and think that you're the only person in the world that has the same ideas as you, And I think that's what it's all about. I think new bands now are starting to understand what they're doing.
You're very businesslike.
I am. Yeah. I think but it's good, most people look at me and think, that guy's an idiot. Fine. I'm quite happy to be thought of as an idiot because I know what I'm doing. Yeah. I think a lot of people, maybe people that speak to me, but I think even when you speak to a lot of journalists, they're still very cynical. They still have this attitude that they've seen it all before, but maybe they have. I couldn't care less, I mean, the most important thing for me is the people out there, not the people. I mean, I need journalists, same as they need artists, but I'm not as interested in them as I am in our fans or what we do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. How old are you right now?
22 next week.
22 next week, is that right?
Yeah.
So how long have you been a professional musician now?
I think from the beginning. I don't think I'll ever be a professional musician. I don't think there is such thing, I mean, pop music is not about being a trained musician. Trained musicians cannot do what we do. They do it too well, and you need that edge. You need that sort of naiveness, that slight sort of not quite there. I think that pop music is based on imperfection, and I think that I have still no musical knowledge. I still don't know how to play a piano. I can just about do scales on my voice. So, I think that I think when you learn what you're good at, then I think you do lose a lot of things. It's like if you're a producer, you can only listen to records and say, hey, great drum sound, hey, really good reverb, high EQ. And I think that kills it for you. So now I just don't want to know. I don't want to know what makes us good, what makes us write good songs. I just don't care. Please, whatever happens, I hope I never find out.
Well, then the better you get, won't that mean the sound will stale then?
No, because I mean, look at, as you just said earlier, Church of the Poisoned Mind is totally different. I mean, a lot of the stuff on the album, we've got a track on the album, the new album, called Karma Chameleon, which is like total bluegrass. It's something I wrote a long time ago, and it's like country, it's like Crosby, Stills and Nash harmonies, but it's done. You see, what I do is I listen. Everything I do is a copy of something. I'm not, I listen to Simon and Garfunkel. I mean, I've got my favourites. I listen to all the time. I mean, the thing is, when you're working with a band, you're restricted on your ideas. There's a lot of things I'd love to do, but you have to delegate certain ideas. And I think that, the next album is far more adult. I mean, people who looked at Kissing to Be Clever looked at my face. I think people were really pleased with Time and Do You Really Want to Hurt Me. Time's now number 2 in America, and this today.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's gone to number 2. So it's 2 number 2s. I'm quite pleased about that. I mean, Irene Cara is going to be at number 1 for the next year, I think. But the new album, I think, will prove it's very musical and lots of very good vocal sort of sounds on it and everything.
What, is it done then already?
It's all recorded. Just a few over. I've got a few lead vocals to do. All the harmonies are done. I'm really pleased with it. I mean, there's jazz on it. There's 60s. Mersey beat. There's a lot of, the thing is, I think that what we do is, some bands can listen to a Latin American track and copy it word for word. I just steal ideas from it and do it in my way. It's the only way you can do it, otherwise, you're playing with perfection, and I think that, you lose. If Latin American music was like the real stuff was popular, then, it would be in all the charts. It isn't. You know what I mean? It's like reggae. Roots reggae isn't popular. Political reggae, people won't play it. But you take Musical Youth, or Johnny Nash, Culture Club, that's our Police, that's pop reggae, you know what I mean? That's acceptable.
It's digestible.
It's not like sort of boing, biddly, bong, religion, man, and all this. People don't want it. Although people can enjoy it on a small level, they don't want it. Just saying, you've run out of time. Is that what it says?
Yeah, it says I've got to taking pictures in another minute. I'm having trouble speaking today.
Okay.
Let me get a couple of questions here. I wrote down to see that I'm not missing anything. Yeah, yeah. You said that the Americans basically took you to heart because of the music. What about here in Japan? What do you think? There's much more of that visual thing.
Well, I think that, a lot of, as I said to you, a lot of the fashion-orientated kids in Japan, I mean, Japan's a very fast city. A lot of the kids that are really up on fashion took to us straight away. But a lot of the other kids, like, are really young, they're very prim and proper, I mean, basically, they're a very clean-living race, they're not like, London's, as I said, is very small. I think that, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me in Time are the sort of meal tickets of this band at the moment, because people, they listen to them and they like them. They're nice melodies. They're very traditional melodies, and I think that's why they like them.
When do you create? When the band all gets together, or do you just do it on your own and come to the band and say, "Hey, I got this melody. Can you put chords?"
Usually, what I do is I sort of go to bed and then wake up at 4:30 and I'll just jump out of bed and say, "I've got an idea," and run. I mean, especially on tour, I do it a lot because the terrible thing is you get ideas in your head in the street. You've got that natural beat walking along, and then you forget it. So I have a Walkman all the time, and I just sing straight into it, And a lot of songs I write, I still keep, because even if they're not right for the band, I can, my ambition is to be a songwriter for other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Neil Sedaka, that type of thing. I want to write songs, and I've got a few projects planned. I've got something planned for next year, which I think will be very successful.
What's that?
Well, we're going to be doing this girl Helen, who sings with she sings on Church of the Boys and Mine. She's the other vocalist, and she hasn't really got that much confidence in herself, but I think she's the best female singer, full stop, at the moment. There isn't anyone with a better voice I've heard, and especially with the range. I mean, on the next album, I think you'll see that she has got one hell of a fucking good voice, and I want to do some stuff with her. That's my next thing, I think. But at the moment, it's Culture Club. I mean, this is consolidation of what we've done. The next album is very important. Cynically for cynics.
Are the phones ringing off the hook from other artists saying we need you?
No. It's basically for your publisher. If you get songs. I mean, I've written a few songs. I've written a few songs on the next album which I wanted to sell, but you write a song and it turns out really good, and that's the best way to do it. If you write a song for somebody else. You get a whole different dimension, and I think that usually you end up keeping them. You say, "I'm not giving it away; it's too good," But I think there are songs which maybe aren't right for us, which I'll try and, But at the moment, it's just Culture Club, and that's that. I think Helen actually is part of their unit, so I'm really looking forward to doing that with her. And I think that she's already been offered quite a few deals just for Church of the Boys and Mine.
Is that right?
Everybody's after her in England, but I think she can resist the temptation. She could be a lot more successful.
Well, I look forward to it. I wish I had more time to talk here, but we have a deal here to take pictures, so I want to thank you very much.
Okay, haven't you taken pictures already?
She says she wants to take pictures of it while you're talking, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, anyway, so are you going to stay in London then?
Based in London.
Based in London.
I think so, yeah. I think that we'll be moving about this year because obviously, there'll be tax problems, But the thing is, the thought of that actually makes me quite ill. I don't think I'd like to leave England because I think that, I don't know what's more important really. I think your peace of mind is more important, and I'll probably stay in England because my parents are there, and I really miss my parents. I mean, I care a lot about them. They're very much older than they were now. And I mean, I need a family. I need family. I need my family. I think that I don't know. I mean, none of my brothers have got. I've got four brothers and one sister. None of them have got anything in common with me whatsoever.
Is that right?
But apart from that, they're nice. They're nice to people, and they don't they're not creeps. But basically, they're not interested in the things I do. I mean, they're interested. They're very proud.
What part of the ladder are you on in the what? It's the 6 brothers and sisters.
I'm the third. There's 2 boys older and a girl younger and 2 boys younger. So I'm in the middle. So
were you always close to sort of everybody, or were you always off on your own in your own room with the door locked, listening to Mark Bolan?
Well, I mean, the thing is, my first home was very small. I mean, our first house, you opened the door and there was the front room, and then you went upstairs and there was 3 rooms. And there was 4 boys in one room and a little girl in another. There were bunk beds, and it's like a fucking army. It's like I mean, but basically, I mean, the thing is, you see, my father's always had his own business, so he's a builder and decorator. So he worked very hard, and I've never gone without anything in my life. I've never known what it's like to. Although I am working class, I'm not working class really, because of my status now. But I am basically from working class background. You know, my parents aren't class conscious. They couldn't give two hoots really. I mean, they're not. When I was younger, you know, if a black person moved in the street, somebody would kick a fuss up. My parents never did that.
Is that right?
You know, well, you do. You know, people do it, don't they? They say, oh, you know, black people.
There was a neighborhood.
You know, in suburbia. I mean, suburbia is not like the city, you know. And I come from root suburbia, you know. And I think a lot of my friends' parents are really horrible, you know. So I had a really good relationship with my parents, you know. We argued, fought, you know. I mean, I had terrible fights with my father and my mother, you know.
Is that right?
Yeah, everyone does. I mean, haven't you? I've sort of gone away thinking I hate them, you know. I think everyone does.
Actually, my parents are kind of the same way. They didn't really give a shit what I did, so went out and did it.
Yeah, as long as you didn't sort of bring police to the door or something, you know, or a drug squad. I mean, my parents, I mean, the thing is I don't drink or take drugs, any. I never have ever in my life taken one drug. And everyone in America says, yeah, Mum, you don't do drugs. I've never taken anything, ever, and that's fact. You know, and I mean, I can prove it. You know, I never have. And I get a lot of, you know, especially in this business, I get a lot of people saying, God, you know. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, Adam Ant doesn't take drugs or drink, you know.
Right.
And I mean, I used to drink quite a lot. I mean, I still drink socially. If you have a record company parties, then you have to have sort of a drink. But I'm not a drinker, and I definitely don't take anything, smoke dope or anything.
You know, it's funny because everybody in the States does drugs. You're right. You know, when I was in high school, I was the only kid that didn't smoke dope. And what a lot of these musicians tell me now is whenever they go in the studio, everybody's on coke, and it sounds good to the people on coke, but when you're not on coke and you listen to it, it sounds terrible. And that's why all the British bands are making it now, because the British guys don't do as much drugs.
No, I think that, you know, I think there's a lot of reasons. There's a rock and roll mentality which destroys bands. And that's what I'm saying to you. I'm not interested in it. I'm a person.
Well, what's the rock and roll mentality you're talking about?
Well, you know, like throwing TVs out of windows, getting stoned, drinking too much, fucking your fans, you know, all that crap. You know, I just don't do it. We don't do that. There's no way, you know. We don't mistreat people. We treat people with respect. You know, I don't need to sleep with my fans because I don't need to prove anything. I know what I am. I know what I enjoy having sex. My basic desires are the same as anyone else's, but that doesn't mean I have to abuse those desires. You know, I mean, maybe, you know, sorry,
I'm just pretending for the photos. I just said pretend you're being interviewed.
And if, you know, if I think that, you know, it's true actually what he's just said, that a lot of American bands think that because they take too much coke, all the English bands are making it because they can't get into what they're doing.
It's true.
I think so.
Yeah, I think the American bands, they're just completely behind on their attitude now. I mean, for a start, seriously, I mean, the world's getting a smaller place, right? And you need to be much, much quicker and more active, especially in a business like the pop music industry. I'm sorry to put it in business terms, but in a way it is like that. And they can't afford to live like that, and people don't want that anymore. They expect, they have a much higher expectancy of musicians now.
And also,
not ability-wise, but just, honesty-wise, really.
No, but one of the funny things as well is that, you know, that MTV has killed those people. You know, people don't want it. American kids don't want people in jeans and t-shirts anymore. They're not interested. I think we've proved that. I mean, look at me, you know. I mean, who would have thought that Culture Club would have been as successful in America? And people love the videos. You know, they're being brought entertainment on a cushion now. Who wants to see some band, you know? I mean, you know, Roy's one of Foreigner, you know, that Waiting for a Girl Like You. It's like one of their favourite records. I mean, you know, I love that record, and so does he. He's always playing it, you know. He's always ripping ideas off Foreigner records. You know what I mean? It's true, you know. But
I think, you know, it's going back like the musicals, you know, Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire, and everything. I mean, if they sort of, it didn't matter what they looked like, but the whole glamour, the way they were surrounded, and the way they dressed and everything. Plus, they had great material, and they were talented, and that's coming back now with video. It's funny. I thought that was something that happened, like a musical type situation is coming back. And George is right. They don't want to see you know, rock stars and on the record you can't hear what you can't see them, you know, you don't know what they're like. But
why is Liberace so huge? Why do old women who have kids who are really respectable go and watch him? Why? You know.
Well, yeah.
Why? Why do old women, when you mention Danny LaRue, turn around and say, you know who Danny LaRue is? You know who Danny LaRue is, don't you?
No, I don't.
Well, he's like he's a most over-the-top drag artist in England, right? And you ask any old woman of 70 and they go, oh, he's so lovely, he's really cuddly, I love him. And the people that go to his concerts are it's just unbelievable, you know, housewives. People love it. People like honesty, you know. if you do something and say, yeah, I do it because I enjoy it, that's it. If you try and pull the wool over people's eyes, they don't like it. And I think that's where we're at an advantage, because we just say, yeah, we do it because we want to, you know.
But Americans don't reject the like a guy dressed up in makeup and stuff, because there's always been this real negative reaction to bands like that. Why?
Well, people like the voice.
And so then they accept.
Basically, you know, if it's like Liberace's a good pianist, right? Can you knock him because he's better than anyone else? So that's why you can't knock him. If you can enjoy somebody for what they do, then you can forget about everything else. It's like if you meet somebody who's like that, and you frighten them to start with, and then you find out they're a really nice person, you know. That's what it's all about, you know. Just not having premeditated ideas about people.
Well,
is this for a Japanese magazine or American?
It's for a Japanese magazine.
Oh, never mind.
We're going to translate it into Japanese later. Thank you for your time. Sorry to have taken up so much. Good luck. Huh?
Okay. In America, that was best for us.
Oh, really?
As regards to crowds, we're more. I think I'll leave this. In America, there's something that's more acceptable about us in America. I think, sound-wise. I don't know about visually. I don't think they really care about the visuals. I think they're really interested in the vocals and the. You know, they like Helen in America. You know, it's their backup singer. She's the big girl that sings with us live. She gets a lot of appreciation in America, and I think, you know, because we've added, since we've been touring, we've added Helen to the lineup. She's not in the band, but she's working with us, and we've also had 2 brass players and a keyboard player, and they seem to really appreciate everything, you know, in America. I mean, the reaction in America was absolutely fantastic, but we went there with the impression that it wouldn't be. So if you go somewhere with a preconception of it, you start to understand it for what it is, and I think that's when you enjoy it. But, you know, the American audiences really listen to us, you know, and like also, I mean, they all sort of like, they start off very light, and then they end up like very rowdy, and sort of, you know, you play clubs. We played a lot of agoras. You know, it's very strange. In America, we played like one night to 700 people, the next night 7,000 in LA. You know, so it's like New Hartford. We played to like 600. You know, and every night it was a different place, different mentalities, different kind of people, some rock and roll audiences, and they all enjoyed us, you know. Like, I mean, you see a few people in the audience like looking at me and going, but as soon as, you know, you're into the set, that's it. They just, you know, they get into it. You know, I mean, lots of people that we really didn't expect to come to our gigs turned up at our gigs, you know, sort of Stevie Winwood, you know, those sort of people, Rod Stewart, you know, all those, and they all enjoyed it, I think, because we are a musician. You get there and like it's totally different. Whereas when I came to Japan, I was quite disappointed at first when I arrived here, because it was very American, very westernized. You know, and like in America you expect it. Here you don't. You expect a lot more culture. But actually, after being here for a week, you realise that there is far more than you actually see when you first arrive.
What did you find to be different from your first impression?
Well, it's very westernised. I mean, Japan is like New York and LA rubbed together, you know. But as you get down on the streets, you know, and you drive around, you suddenly realise, and also meeting the people, you suddenly realise that it's a completely different mentality, you know. I mean, America is... When I went to America, I hated it the first time. The second time, I absolutely loved it. I mean, I loved LA, and I absolutely, you know, I couldn't wait to go back, you know. So I think it's just... when you sort of get into the mechanics of where you go to, you know, wherever you go, America, Japan, once you get into it,
bands?
Bands and just generally, I suppose, everybody, you know, that you meet here, it's just a completely different mentality. It certainly really changes your attitude towards sort of other people being here even for a week, you know. It makes you start sort of wanting to give things to people. It's terrible. I mean, it's not terrible, but I mean, you just don't get, you know, the organisation in Japan and everything, they're just far more intelligent than anywhere else, you know.
You don't think so?
Oh, definitely. I think, you know, just the way that you get to gigs, the way that they organise things, you know, you're getting off at a station where there's like hundreds of fans, you know, where they get you off, you know, everything. They're just very clever. Far more clever than anywhere we've been, and we've been everywhere nearly, you know.
What about the crowd reaction? Is that different from like what you've been used to?
Well, obviously, I mean, despite what the actually image portrays, we are actually musicians, and we're good musicians. I think that we are basically a very good rock and roll band. You know, we have the rock and roll setup, which is another thing which makes us very acceptable in America. You know, a lot of the English bands have been there with synths and no drums, and I don't think they can get into that at all. You know, they like the drummer, the guitars, they like that sort of setup there. I think that's something they're really into.
Which came first in America? Was it the sound or the visuals? Like,
definitely the sound. I mean, the album cover, they begged me for months to take my face off it.
Oh, really?
To change it, yeah. And you see, the thing is, I thought about this a great deal before I went to America, and my idea was that if I went, every band, like the Human League went to America, and they had a hit with Don't You Want Me, then they cut their hair off and took off their makeup and went normal.